What happens when the most powerful alien empire decides to mock humanity by giving away their most precious princess as a joke? What they didn't expect was that this single act of cruelty would awaken something in both the princess and her human companion that would shake the very foundations of galactic civilization. In the cold depths of space, where empires rise and fall like distant stars, one moment of cosmic arrogance would trigger a chain of events that would rewrite the laws of power itself. This is the story of Princess Zarathel of the mighty Vextari Empire, and Marcus Chen, a humble human engineer who was about to prove that sometimes the greatest strength comes from the most unexpected places. Prepare yourself for a journey that will challenge everything you thought you knew about power, loyalty, and what it truly means to be human in a universe that has forgotten the meaning of compassion. The massive Vextari warship descended through Earth's atmosphere like a falling mountain, its crystalline hull catching the sunlight and throwing it back in patterns that hurt human eyes to look at directly. Marcus Chen stood among the crowd of diplomats and officials gathered at the landing site, his worn engineering uniform making him stand out like a rust stain on polished metal. He shouldn't have been there at all, but a last-minute equipment failure had required his expertise to ensure the landing pad systems could handle the alien vessel's unique energy signature. As the ship settled onto the reinforced platform with surprising grace for something so massive, Marcus wiped sweat from his forehead and wondered why he felt so uneasy. The Vextari had made contact with humanity 3 months ago, presenting themselves as benevolent observers interested in peaceful relations. Their technology was so far beyond human capabilities that they might as well have been gods, and yet they claimed to want friendship. The ship's boarding ramp extended with a sound like singing crystal, and the Vextari delegation emerged. They were tall and elegant, their skin shimmering with an inner light that shifted between silver and blue. Their leader, Ambassador Catharin, moved with the fluid grace of water flowing downhill. Behind him came a dozen other Vextari in elaborate ceremonial robes that seemed to be woven from starlight itself. But it was the figure at the very back of the group that made Marcus's breath catch in his throat. Even from a distance, he could see she was different from the others. Where they moved with confident authority, she walked with her head bowed. Where their robes were magnificent, hers was simple and unadorned. Where they carried themselves like conquerors, she seemed almost to be trying to disappear. Ambassador Catharin approached the human delegation with what might have been a smile on his alien features. Secretary General Williams stepped forward to greet him, flanked by the usual collection of politicians and military officers who appeared at every major diplomatic event. "Greetings, friends of Earth," Catharin said, his voice carrying an odd harmonic quality that made it seem to come from multiple directions at once. "We come bearing gifts as a token of the friendship between our peoples." Marcus noticed the way the other Vextari behind Catharin shifted slightly, and he could have sworn he saw some of them trying to suppress what looked like laughter. Something cold settled in his stomach. "We are honored by your generosity," Secretary General Williams replied with the careful neutrality that had kept Earth from being conquered during first contact. "What manner of gifts do you bring?" Catharin gestured, and several of his companions came forward carrying what appeared to be technological devices that glowed with soft inner light. "Advanced medical scanners, capable of detecting and treating diseases your people have never encountered. Agricultural enhancement systems that can triple crop yields in any soil. And," he paused dramatically, "a personal gift from our royal house to yours." This was when Catharin turned and beckoned to the figure at the back of the group. She came forward slowly, and Marcus got his first clear look at her face. She was beautiful in an otherworldly way, but what struck him most was the resigned sadness in her large, dark eyes. She looked like someone who had accepted a terrible fate. "May I present Princess Zarathel, daughter of Emperor Vorthake the Eternal, heir to the crystal throne of the Vextari Empire." Catharin's voice carried a note of ceremony, but Marcus caught the underlying current of something else. Mockery, maybe. Or cruelty disguised as generosity. The human delegation stood in stunned silence. Giving away a princess as a diplomatic gift was so far outside their understanding of normal relations that no one seemed to know how to respond. We cannot possibly accept such a..." Secretary General Williams began, but Catharin raised a hand. "Please, do not refuse our gift. The princess is young and inexperienced in the ways of statecraft. We believe she could learn much from observing your fascinating human society. Consider her an exchange student, if you will. She will require a guide, someone to show her your ways and ensure her safety. The way he said it made it clear this wasn't really a request or even a gift. This was something else entirely, though Marcus couldn't yet understand what. Secretary General Williams looked around desperately at her advisors, but they were all equally lost. This was unprecedented territory. Finally, her gaze fell on Marcus, who happened to be standing at the edge of the group. "Mr. Chen," she said, her voice carrying the tone of someone grasping at straws. "You've been working on the cultural integration protocols for potential alien visitors. Perhaps you could." Marcus felt his mouth go dry. "Ma'am, I'm just an engineer. I work on the technical aspects of the protocols, not the cultural ones. I'm not qualified to." "Excellent," Catharin interrupted, and Marcus could have sworn the alien smile had grown sharper. "An engineer. How perfectly appropriate. The princess has always been fascinated by mechanical devices and systems. You two should get along wonderfully." Before anyone could object further, Catharin gestured to Princess Zarathel. "Come forward, child. Meet your new guardian." She approached Marcus with the same resigned walk she'd shown before, but, as she drew near, he caught a glimpse of something else in her eyes. Intelligence. Sharp, calculating intelligence that was carefully hidden beneath the mask of submission. "Princess," Marcus said awkwardly, not sure if he should bow or shake hands or what the proper protocol was for meeting alien royalty who'd just been given away like a piece of furniture. She looked up at him, and, for just a moment, her mask slipped completely. What he saw there was rage. Pure, burning fury that was so intense it made him step back involuntarily. Then, the mask was back in place, and she spoke in a voice that was soft and musical despite the underlying steel. "I am honored to be placed in your care, Marcus Chen of Earth. I hope I will not be too much of a burden." The words were polite, but Marcus heard the message underneath. She knew exactly what was happening here. This wasn't an honor or a gift. This was an insult, a way for the Vextari to demonstrate their superiority by treating their own royalty as disposable tokens. And, somehow, he'd just become part of it. Over the next hour, the formal ceremonies continued. Documents were signed, though Marcus was pretty sure they were meaningless since no human law really covered the situation of being given an alien princess. The Vextari delegation presented their other gifts with great ceremony, and plans were made for future cultural exchanges. Through it all, Princess Zarathel stood silently beside Marcus, her expression never changing from polite interest. But he found himself watching her carefully, and he began to notice small things. The way her eyes tracked every piece of human technology she saw, cataloging and analyzing. The way she listened to conversations happening around them, her head tilted slightly to catch every word even when she appeared to be focused elsewhere. The way her fingers occasionally moved in complex patterns against her side, as if she was working through calculations or problems in her head. When the ceremonies finally ended and the Vextari delegation prepared to return to their ship, Catharin approached Marcus one last time. "Take good care of our princess," he said, and there was definitely mockery in his voice now. "She can be quite resourceful when she puts her mind to something. I'm sure you'll find her educational." As the Vextari ship lifted off and disappeared into the afternoon sky, Marcus found himself standing on the tarmac with an alien princess and absolutely no idea what he was supposed to do next. The other humans had all found excuses to leave quickly, leaving him alone with his unexpected responsibility. "So," he said finally, "I guess I should show you where you'll be staying. I have a small apartment, but we can probably arrange better accommodations." "Your apartment will be fine," she said quietly. "I do not require luxury." As they walked toward his beat-up old truck, Marcus tried to process what had just happened. This morning he'd been a simple engineer working on integration protocols. Now he was apparently the guardian of an alien princess who'd been given away like a party favor by her own people. "Can I ask you something?" he said as they reached his truck. She nodded. "Why did they really give you to us?" "Because that whole story about cultural exchange and learning from human society was complete nonsense, wasn't it?" For the first time since he'd met her, Princess Zarathel smiled. It wasn't a happy smile. "You are more perceptive than most, Marcus Chen. The truth is simple. I am a failure and an embarrassment to my people. I ask too many questions, think too much about things that princesses should not concern themselves with, and, worst of all, I have ideas about how our empire should be run that my father finds disturbing." She paused as he opened the truck door for her, studying the simple mechanical latch with obvious interest. "Giving me to your people serves multiple purposes. It removes me from court where I cannot cause further embarrassment. It demonstrates Vextari superiority by showing that we consider our royal blood so worthless we can give it away to primitives. And it provides my father with an excuse to name one of my more traditional sisters as heir instead." Marcus felt anger rising in his chest. "That's horrible. You're their princess. How can they treat you like that?" "Because power is the only thing the Vextari truly respect," she said as she climbed into the truck. "And I have never been powerful enough to demand better treatment." As Marcus started the engine and began driving toward his apartment complex, he found himself thinking about her words. Power was something he understood, in a way. As an engineer, he worked with power systems every day. He knew that power wasn't just about having strength or authority. Real power came from understanding how systems worked, from seeing connections that others missed, from being able to build something new and better than what came before. "Princess Zara Fell," he said as they stopped at a red light. "Please, just call me Zara. I suspect my days of being a princess are over." "Zara, then. Can I ask what kind of ideas you had that your father found so disturbing?" She was quiet for so long that he thought she wasn't going to answer. Then, as they turned into his apartment complex, she spoke. "I believe that true strength comes not from conquering others, but from lifting them up. I believe that an empire built on fear and domination is ultimately weak, because it wastes the potential of all those it oppresses. And I believe that sometimes the greatest innovations come from the most unexpected sources." As Marcus parked the truck and they walked toward his building, he found himself thinking that maybe the Vextari had made a bigger mistake than they realized. They'd given away their princess as an insult, assuming she was worthless. But what if they were wrong? What if they'd just given humanity access to someone who could show them secrets about the universe they'd never dreamed of? And what if, in trying to humiliate both humans and their own princess, they'd accidentally created the conditions for something extraordinary to grow? As they climbed the stairs to his third-floor apartment, Marcus made a decision. He didn't know what was going to happen next, but he was going to make sure that Zara got the chance to prove her worth. Not as an alien curiosity or a diplomatic prize, but as a person with ideas and dreams that deserve to be heard. The Vextari thought they'd played a clever joke by giving away their failed princess. Marcus suspected they were about to discover just how wrong they could be. Marcus's apartment was nothing special by human standards, but watching Zara examine everything with intense fascination made him see it through new eyes. She spent nearly an hour studying his kitchen faucet, turning it on and off repeatedly while muttering to herself in what he assumed was her native language. When she moved on to the electrical outlets, he started to worry she might electrocute herself. "The integration of your power distribution system into every structure is remarkable," she said, running her fingers along the wall where the wiring was hidden. "On Vextari ships, power is distributed through crystal matrices that require constant maintenance and adjustment. This method is so much more elegant in its simplicity." "It's just basic electrical wiring," Marcus said, though he found himself oddly pleased by her appreciation. "Nothing fancy about it." "Nothing fancy?" Zara turned to look at him with an expression of genuine surprise. "Marcus, do you realize that your people have solved one of the fundamental problems that has plagued galactic civilization for millennia? You've created a power distribution system that requires no exotic materials, no psychic manipulation, and no constant oversight. It simply works." Over the following days, Marcus began to understand that Zara's fascination with human technology wasn't casual curiosity. She had a mind that operated on levels he was only beginning to grasp. She would disappear into his small home workshop for hours at a time, emerging with sketches and diagrams covered in symbols he'd never seen before, muttering about efficiency ratios and power consumption algorithms. On the fourth day, she asked him about his work. "You mentioned you're an engineer. What exactly do you engineer?" Marcus gestured toward the stack of technical manuals and project files scattered across his kitchen table. Right now I'm working on improving the efficiency of solar collection arrays. Trying to squeeze more power out of the same amount of sunlight. Zara picked up one of his design schematics and studied it with the intensity of someone reading a sacred text. May I see your current prototypes? The next morning, Marcus brought her to his laboratory at the university. It wasn't much, just a converted classroom with workbenches and basic fabrication equipment, but Zara treated it like they'd entered a temple. "This is where you build your designs?" she asked, her voice carrying a note of reverence that seemed strange coming from someone whose people traveled between stars. "When I can get funding for materials, yeah. Most of my work is theoretical. The university doesn't have the budget for extensive prototyping." Zara walked slowly around the lab, examining every tool and instrument. When she reached his current solar panel prototype, she stopped and stared at it for so long that Marcus began to worry something was wrong. "Marcus," she said finally, "may I make some modifications to your design?" "I guess so, but you'd need to understand the underlying physics of photovoltaic conversion, and human technology is probably pretty primitive compared to what you're used to." She gave him a look that was equal parts amused and sad. "I have 3 advanced degrees in applied energy systems from the Royal Technical Academy. Before I became politically inconvenient, I was considered one of the most promising young scientists in the Empire." Marcus felt his face flush with embarrassment. "I'm sorry, I didn't know. How could you? The Vextari delegation made it clear I was just a useless princess being given away. They wouldn't want you to know that I actually have value." Over the next week, Zara threw herself into improving Marcus's solar panel design with an intensity that was almost frightening. She worked 18-hour days, stopping only when Marcus literally forced food in front of her. She filled notebook after notebook with calculations and diagrams, muttering constantly in her native language. Marcus tried to follow her work, but she was operating on a level of theoretical understanding that left him struggling to keep up. She seemed to intuitively grasp connections between different physical principles that had never occurred to him. "The problem with your approach," she explained one evening as they sat surrounded by modified prototypes, "is that you're thinking in terms of capturing energy. But what if instead of trying to catch all the photons, we taught the material itself to resonate with the solar spectrum?" "I don't understand." "Materials don't resonate with light, they just absorb it or reflect it." Zara smiled, and, for the first time since he'd met her, it was a genuinely happy expression. "Not with human understanding of material science, no. But what if we could create a crystalline matrix that vibrates at frequencies that harmonize with specific wavelengths of light?" She showed him a diagram that looked like nothing he'd ever seen in any engineering textbook. It resembled a crystal lattice, but one that seemed to move and flow even on paper. "This is theoretical Vextari science. We use these principles in our starship cores, but we've never thought to apply them to something as simple as energy collection. Your solar panels gave me the idea. Can you actually build something like this? With human materials? I wasn't sure, but..." She gestured toward the workbench where a device sat that definitely hadn't been there that morning. It looked like a cross between a solar panel and a piece of jewelry, with a crystalline surface that seemed to shift and sparkle even in the lab's fluorescent lighting. "Is that a hybrid human Vextari solar collection array? It uses Earth materials arranged in patterns based on Vextari crystalline resonance theory." Zara's voice carried a note of excitement that made her seem younger somehow. "I think it might actually work." Marcus stared at the device, trying to process what she was telling him. "If this works, if it's actually more efficient than standard solar panels, it should be approximately 15 times more efficient than your best current technology." The number hit Marcus like a physical blow. 15 times more efficient. That wasn't just an improvement, it was a revolution. Energy problems that had plagued humanity for decades could be solved overnight. "Zara, if this works, you've just changed everything. This could solve climate change, end energy poverty, transform human civilization." She looked at him with an expression he couldn't quite read. "Is that what you think this is about? Helping humanity? Isn't it?" "Marcus, I've spent the last week studying your species through every database I could access. Do you know what I discovered? He shook his head. Humans are extraordinary. Not because you're technologically advanced or militarily powerful. You're extraordinary because you're the first species I've ever encountered that consistently chooses cooperation over domination when given the choice. Zara sat down heavily on one of the lab stools, suddenly, looking tired. Every other species in the galaxy, when they develop technology that could change everything, they immediately weaponize it. They ask how they can use it to control others, to accumulate power, to build empires. But, when you developed nuclear energy, some of you did use it for weapons, but others immediately started thinking about how to use it to power cities, to heal diseases, to explore space. That's just practical thinking. No, Marcus, it's not. It's revolutionary thinking. And it terrifies species like mine. She gestured toward the hybrid solar device. This technology, combined with human manufacturing capabilities and human distribution ethics, could transform not just your world but every world in the galaxy. Energy is the foundation of all civilization. Whoever controls advanced energy technology controls everything. Marcus began to understand why she looked so tired. And you're giving it to us. I'm giving it to the one species that might actually use it to help everyone instead of just themselves. She met his eyes. But there's something else you need to know. When word of this gets back to the Vextari Empire, they're going to realize what they've done. They're going to understand that they didn't give away a useless princess. They gave away someone who could shift the balance of power in the galaxy. What does that mean? It means they'll come for me. And, when they do, they won't be interested in diplomatic niceties. Over the following days, as they tested and refined the hybrid solar technology, Marcus found himself thinking constantly about Zara's words. The device worked exactly as she predicted, converting solar energy at rates that made his head spin. A single panel the size of his hand could power his entire apartment with energy to spare. But, more than the technology itself, he was amazed by the way Zara approached the work. She didn't just hand him a finished invention and walk away. Instead, she patiently explained every principle, every modification, every theoretical foundation. She was teaching him, making sure he understood not just how to build the technology but why it worked. You're creating a permanent knowledge transfer, he realized one afternoon as they documented the fabrication process. Even if something happens to you, humans will understand the principles well enough to continue developing the technology. That's the idea, she said without looking up from her calculations. Knowledge shared is knowledge that survives. But why are you really doing this? I mean, I understand about helping humanity and all that, but there's something else, isn't there? Zara set down her stylus and looked at him with those dark eyes that seemed to hold depths he couldn't fathom. Because this is what I was supposed to do, Marcus. Not be a decorative princess sitting on a throne, but use my mind to make the universe a better place. The Vextari gave me away because they thought I was worthless, but they accidentally gave me exactly what I needed. What's that? A chance to prove them wrong. And a partner who believes that knowledge should be used to help people rather than control them. As Marcus processed her words, he realized that something fundamental had changed in how he saw their situation. This wasn't just about an alien princess sharing advanced technology. This was about two people from different worlds who shared the same dream of using science to make life better for everyone. But, even as he felt a surge of hope and excitement about what they could accomplish together, a cold dread was settling in his stomach. Because if Zara was right about how the Vextari would react to losing their technological advantage, then their time was limited. They had created something extraordinary together, but now they had to figure out how to protect it. And how to survive what was coming next. The first sign that something had changed came when Marcus's supervisor called him into the office on a Thursday morning. Dr. Rebecca Martinez had always been supportive of his research, but today she looked nervous and excited in equal measure. Marcus, I've been getting calls from people I've never heard of asking about your current projects. Department of Energy officials, military contractors, even someone who claimed to be from the White House Science Council. Marcus felt his stomach drop. He and Zara had agreed to keep their breakthrough quiet until they could figure out the best way to share it, but apparently word was spreading anyway. What kind of calls? The kind that suggests someone very important has taken notice of what you're doing. There's going to be a review committee here tomorrow to evaluate your work. Dr. Martinez leaned forward. Marcus, what exactly have you been working on that could attract this level of attention? Before he could answer, his phone buzzed with a text from Zara. We have a problem. Come home immediately. Marcus made his excuses and drove home faster than was probably safe, his mind racing through possibilities. When he burst through his apartment door, he found Zara standing at the window, staring up at the sky with an expression that made his blood run cold. They're here, she said without turning around. Who's here? Look up. Marcus joined her at the window and followed her gaze. At first he didn't see anything unusual, just the normal afternoon sky with a few scattered clouds. Then, Zara pointed to what he had taken for a particularly bright star. That's not a star, she said. That's a Vextari surveillance probe. They've been watching us for at least the last 2 days. How can you tell? Because I know how to recognize my own people's technology. And, because it's been maintaining a perfect geosynchronous orbit directly above this building. She finally turned to look at him, and he saw fear in her eyes for the first time. Marcus, they know what we've built. Somehow, they know. How is that possible? We've been careful. Have we? You mentioned that your work is being reviewed tomorrow. Do you think that's a coincidence? Zara walked to the kitchen table where their latest prototype sat among scattered technical drawings. Someone has been monitoring human communications, looking for signs that I might be causing trouble. When government officials started calling about revolutionary energy technology being developed by the same engineer who's been caring for the disgraced Vextari princess. She didn't need to finish the thought. What do? We accelerate everything. Tonight, we finish documenting the technology and get the information to as many people as possible. Because tomorrow, I won't be here to help anymore. Marcus felt panic rising in his chest. What do you mean you won't be here? Zara gestured toward the window. That probe isn't just watching us. It's preparing for extraction. They're going to take me back, and, when they do, they'll make sure I never have the chance to share Vextari secrets again. We can contact the government, ask for protection. From what? A civilization that can cross interstellar space in days and has weapons that can turn planets into dust? Marcus, your people are brave and clever, but you're not ready for a war with the Vextari Empire. The next few hours passed in a blur of frantic activity. They worked together to create a comprehensive technical manual explaining every aspect of the hybrid solar technology, from theoretical foundations to manufacturing specifications. Zara dictated while Marcus typed, creating document after document filled with diagrams, calculations, and step-by-step instructions. This is everything, Zara said as they finished the last section. With these documents, your people can not only recreate our prototype but improve on it. The principles I've shared should lead to dozens of other applications. Zara, there has to be another way. We can hide, or... Hide where? They have sensors that can track my biological signature from orbit. And, even if we could hide, what about your people? Do you think the Vextari will just forget that humans now possess technology that threatens their power structure? Before Marcus could respond, every electronic device in the apartment suddenly shut off. The lights went out, his laptop died, even his digital watch went blank. The only illumination came from the strange inner glow of their hybrid solar prototype. They're here, Zara said quietly. Marcus looked out the window and saw a ship descending through the clouds. It was smaller than the massive vessel that had brought Zara to Earth, but still dwarfed anything in humanity's aerospace inventory. As it settled onto the street in front of his apartment building, he could see people emerging from nearby buildings to stare at it in wonder and terror. I need you to do something for me, Zara said, her voice steady despite what was happening. When they take me, wait exactly 1 hour, then upload all our documentation to every scientific institution and news organization you can think of. Don't try to be selective or careful about it. Flood the internet with this information so thoroughly that it becomes impossible to suppress. Zara. Promise me, Marcus. Promise me you'll make sure this knowledge reaches everyone. I promise. But, what about you? What's going to happen when they take you back? She smiled, and, to his surprise, it wasn't a sad smile. I don't know. But, for the first time in my life, I'm not afraid of my father or the Empire. Do you know why? Marcus shook his head. Because I've accomplished something that matters. I've given humanity a tool that could change the galaxy, and I've done it in a way that embodies everything I believe about what civilization should be. Knowledge shared freely, technology used to lift everyone up rather than hold them down, cooperation instead of domination. There was a knock at the door. Not a polite human knock, but the kind of sound that suggested the door would be coming off its hinges momentarily whether it was opened or not. Whatever happens next, Zara continued, I want you to know that these weeks working with you have been the best of my life. You treated me like a person with valuable ideas instead of a failed princess or an exotic curiosity. You made me feel like my thoughts and dreams actually mattered. The knocking stopped, replaced by a low humming sound that made the walls vibrate. Marcus, there's one more thing. The technology we've created, it's just the beginning. The principles involved can be applied to far more than energy collection. Transportation, manufacturing, communication, even life extension. What we've built together is the foundation for a new kind of civilization. I'll remember, Marcus said, though his voice came out as barely a whisper. The apartment door dissolved. Not broken open or blown apart, but simply ceased to exist, leaving an opening where solid wood had been moments before. 3 Vextari stepped through, wearing armor that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. The leader spoke in the same harmonic voice Marcus remembered from Ambassador Catharin, but there was no pretense of friendliness now. Princess Zarathel of House Vorthake, you are commanded to return with us immediately to face judgment for treason against the Empire. Treason? Zara stepped forward, her chin raised defiantly. I was given away like unwanted baggage. How can sharing knowledge while in exile be treason? You shared classified technological secrets with a primitive species. You have potentially destabilized the balance of power that has maintained galactic peace for millennia. Your actions constitute the highest form of treason possible. Marcus watched in amazement as Zara transformed before his eyes. Gone was any trace of the submissive, resigned princess he had first met. In her place stood someone who radiated authority and conviction. I shared knowledge that could end suffering and inequality throughout the galaxy. If that's treason against an empire built on hoarding technology to maintain dominance, then I gladly accept the charge. The lead guard gestured, and Zara's hands were suddenly bound by bands of the same light-absorbing material as their armor. But, even as they prepared to take her away, she continued speaking. Marcus Chen, remember what we discussed about the resonance frequencies. The key is in the harmonic relationships between different energy states. And, remember that the best discoveries come from cooperation between different perspectives. As the guards escorted her toward the door, she turned back one last time. Thank you for showing me what it means to use science in service of hope rather than power. Then, they were gone, leaving Marcus alone in his apartment with its missing door and the prototype device that still glowed softly on his kitchen table. He stood there in the darkness for what felt like hours but was probably only minutes, trying to process everything that had just happened. Zara was gone, taken back to face punishment for helping humanity. But she had given him something extraordinary, and she had trusted him to make sure it reached everyone who could benefit from it. Marcus looked at his watch, the analog one that had continued working even when all the electronics failed. 57 minutes to go before he could start uploading their documentation. 3 more minutes before he could begin the process that would change human civilization forever. As he waited, he thought about what Zara had said about cooperation between different perspectives. She had combined Vextari theoretical knowledge with human practical engineering, creating something neither could have achieved alone. But, more than that, she had shown him that the greatest advances came not from trying to dominate or control others, but from working together toward common goals. The Vextari thought they had solved their problem by retrieving their wayward princess. But, Marcus suspected they had made a mistake that would echo across the galaxy. Because they had underestimated not just Zara's brilliance, but humanity's determination to share beneficial knowledge with everyone. In 3 more minutes, he was going to prove them wrong in the most spectacular way possible. Marcus spent exactly 1 hour staring at the clock, and then, he began the most important data upload in human history. He started with every major university's physics and engineering departments, then, moved on to national laboratories, government research institutions, and scientific journals. He uploaded the complete technical documentation to MIT, Stanford, Cambridge, the Large Hadron Collider Project, NASA, the Department of Energy, and dozens of other organizations. But he didn't stop there. Remembering Zara's emphasis on sharing knowledge as widely as possible, he uploaded the documents to Wikipedia, Reddit, scientific forums, makerspaces, and even social media platforms. He sent copies to science journalists, bloggers, and YouTube creators. Within hours, the hybrid solar technology specifications were spreading across the internet faster than any attempt to contain them could possibly succeed. The response was immediate and overwhelming. His phone started ringing before he'd finished the uploads, with reporters, scientists, and government officials all demanding explanations. But Marcus ignored the calls and focused on monitoring the online discussion. The initial reaction was skepticism. Claims of revolutionary energy technology appeared regularly on the internet, and most scientists had learned to ignore them. But, as researchers began examining the detailed technical specifications Zara had provided, skepticism gave way to excitement and, then, to something approaching awe. Dr. Sarah Chen at MIT was among the first to publicly verify the theoretical foundations. "The mathematics are sound," she posted on her research blog. "Not only sound, but elegant in a way that suggests genuine breakthrough science rather than elaborate hoax. If these specifications are accurate, we're looking at the most significant advance in energy technology since the discovery of nuclear fission." Within 48 hours, research teams around the world were building prototypes based on Zara's designs. The University of Tokyo confirmed efficiency improvements of 1,200% over conventional solar panels. A team in Germany achieved even better results by modifying the crystalline matrix patterns. The Indian Institute of Technology published a paper showing how the same principles could be applied to wind energy collection. Marcus watched it all unfold from his apartment, which had become the center of a media storm. News vans lined his street, and reporters tried to interview anyone who had ever spoken to him. Government representatives appeared at his door every few hours, some offering protection, others demanding to know how he had accessed such advanced technology. He told them all the same thing: the technology came from Princess Zarathel, who had been taken back by her own people after sharing knowledge that could transform human civilization. Most didn't believe him until footage emerged from traffic cameras and cell phones showing the Vextari ship's departure. Then, everything changed again. 3 days after Zara's capture, as prototype hybrid solar panels were being tested on 6 continents and energy companies were scrambling to understand the implications for their industries, the Vextari returned. This time, it wasn't a single ship but an entire fleet. Marcus counted at least 20 vessels through his apartment window before giving up. They took positions in orbit around Earth, and every major world leader received the same message simultaneously. Ambassador Catharin's voice echoed from every television, radio, and internet connection on the planet. "People of Earth, you have received stolen Vextari technology through the treacherous actions of a disgraced member of our royal house. This technology was shared without authorization and poses a threat to galactic stability. We demand its immediate return and the destruction of all copies and prototypes." The response from Earth was not what the Vextari had expected. Instead of cowering or scrambling to comply, humanity reacted with defiance that surprised even Marcus. Scientists released statements refusing to abandon research that could solve climate change and end energy poverty. Government leaders pointed out that the technology had been freely given by someone who was herself given away as a diplomatic gift. Social media exploded with posts supporting what was quickly being called Princess Zara's gift. But it was a video message that appeared on every major platform simultaneously that truly shocked the galaxy. The message came from Princess Zarathel herself, speaking from what appeared to be a prison cell. "My fellow beings throughout the galaxy," she said, her voice clear and steady despite the circumstances, "I want you to know that I shared advanced technology with humanity by choice, not through coercion or theft. I did so because I believe that knowledge belongs to everyone, not just to those with the power to hoard it." The image was clearly being broadcast without Vextari authorization, which raised immediate questions about how she had managed it. The Vextari Empire is built on the principle that superior technology equals the right to rule. They maintain their dominance by ensuring that other species remain dependent and technologically inferior. But what if that principle is wrong? What if true strength comes not from keeping others weak, but from helping them become strong? Marcus realized he was holding his breath as he watched. Humans have shown me a different way of thinking about power and knowledge. When they make a breakthrough, their instinct is to share it, to build on it together, to use it to solve common problems. This terrifies empires like mine because it represents a fundamental threat to the idea that some beings are inherently superior to others. The video quality was deteriorating, suggesting that Vextari security was working to block the transmission. I call upon every species in the galaxy to demand access to technologies that could improve their lives. I call upon scientists and engineers everywhere to work together across species boundaries. And I call upon the Vextari Empire to choose cooperation over domination, knowledge sharing over secrecy. The transmission cut off abruptly, but it had been broadcasting long enough for copies to spread across hundreds of worlds through the galactic communication network. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Within hours, protests erupted on dozens of planets where subject species demanded access to advanced technologies their Vextari overlords had been withholding. The carefully maintained balance of power that had kept the Empire stable for millennia was suddenly under threat from every direction. But it was the response from Earth that truly stunned the galaxy. Every major world leader appeared together at an emergency session of the United Nations. Secretary General Williams spoke for all of them. The Vextari Empire gave us Princess Zarathel as what they considered a worthless gift. She has proven to be the most valuable person ever to set foot on our world. In return for her gift of knowledge, we offer her the protection of every human being on this planet. Furthermore, Williams continued, we declare that any technology developed from Princess Zara's knowledge will be shared freely with any species that requests it. We reject the idea that advanced civilizations have the right to keep others in technological poverty. The Vextari response was swift and predictable. Ambassador Catharin appeared on screens worldwide once again. You have 24 hours to surrender all stolen technology and cease your illegal research. Failure to comply will result in military action to protect galactic stability. But something unexpected happened during those 24 hours. Ships began arriving in Earth's solar system, but they weren't all Vextari vessels. Marcus watched through his window as sleek ships with unfamiliar designs took positions alongside the Vextari fleet. News reports identified them as vessels from the Kethare Collective, the Zephyrian Republic, and nearly a dozen other galactic civilizations that had remained neutral or subject to Vextari influence for centuries. The reason became clear when Captain Veltar of the Kethare ship Harmony broadcast a message to Earth: we have come to protect the world that has shown us that another way is possible. Princess Zarathel's message has awakened something in our peoples that has been sleeping too long. If the Vextari want to attack those who share knowledge freely, they will have to fight all of us. Marcus realized that Zara had achieved something even more remarkable than revolutionary energy technology. She had started a galactic revolution based on the simple idea that cooperation was stronger than domination. But the question remained: what would the Vextari Empire do when faced with a coalition of species they had spent millennia keeping divided and weak? The answer came at dawn on the fifth day. Every Vextari ship in orbit around Earth suddenly began broadcasting the same message simultaneously. But this time, it wasn't Ambassador Catharin's voice that filled the airwaves. It was Princess Zarathel. Citizens of the Vextari Empire, she said, I speak to you from the Crystal Throne, which I have claimed by right of succession following my father's abdication. Marcus nearly dropped his coffee mug. Somehow, impossibly, Zara had not only escaped from prison but had managed to overthrow her own father and claim the throne of the most powerful empire in the galaxy. I hereby dissolve the old structures of dominance that have kept our people isolated and our subjects oppressed. The Vextari Empire is dead. In its place, I announce the formation of the Galactic Cooperative, an alliance of species working together for the benefit of all. As Marcus listened to Zara outline her vision for a galaxy where technology was shared freely and no species was considered superior to another, he realized that everything had changed. The aliens who had given away their princess as a joke had accidentally given birth to a new era of galactic civilization. And it all started with a hybrid solar panel built in a converted classroom by an engineer and a princess who believed that knowledge belonged to everyone. 6 months after Princess Zarathel's revolution transformed galactic civilization, Marcus stood in what had once been his small university laboratory but was now the headquarters of the Terran Galactic Research Consortium. The converted classroom had been expanded into a sprawling complex where humans worked alongside beings from dozens of different worlds, all united by Zara's vision of cooperative scientific advancement. The transformation had been remarkable to witness. Within weeks of the Galactic Cooperative's formation, ships had begun arriving at Earth carrying not weapons but scientists, engineers, and researchers from across the galaxy. Species that had been enemies for millennia found themselves working side by side, sharing knowledge that had been hoarded for centuries. The hybrid solar technology that Zara had developed with Marcus had indeed been just the beginning. Combined with crystalline manufacturing techniques from the Kethare, atmospheric processors from the Zephyrians, and biological computers from the Thlasian collective, human innovation had accelerated at a pace that still left Marcus breathless. Earth's energy problems had been solved within the first month. Climate change was being rapidly reversed through atmospheric manipulation technologies that had been theoretical dreams just months before. Poverty was disappearing as replication devices made basic necessities abundant for everyone. But, more than the technological advances, Marcus was amazed by how quickly beings from different worlds had learned to work together. The laboratory buzzed with conversation in a dozen languages as teams collaborated on projects that would have been impossible for any single species to achieve alone. Marcus! The familiar voice made him turn, and he smiled as he saw Zara approaching through the crowd of researchers. She looked different from the resigned princess he had first met, standing taller and moving with the confidence of someone who had discovered her true purpose in life. Empress Zarathel, he said with a slight bow, though he couldn't keep the teasing note out of his voice. Just Zara, please. You know I only use the title when dealing with stubborn planetary governors who think hierarchies matter more than results. She had changed in other ways too. Gone were the simple robes she had worn during her exile. Now she dressed in practical work clothes similar to what the human researchers wore, with the addition of a crystalline pendant that Marcus knew was actually a quantum communication device keeping her connected to every world in the cooperative. How are the integration projects going? She asked as they walked toward the main research floor. Better than we dared hope. The Joint Terraforming Initiative just got approval from 17 worlds. The medical exchange program has eliminated 12 different genetic diseases across 4 species. And the Educational Cooperation Project has established shared universities on 38 planets. Marcus paused at one of the observation windows overlooking the main laboratory floor. Below them, a team that included humans, Vextari, Kethare, and 2 species he still couldn't pronounce the names of were working together on what appeared to be a prototype faster-than-light communication system. Sometimes I still can't believe this is real, he said. 6 months ago, most of these species had never even met each other. The connections were always possible, Zara replied. Fear and artificial scarcity kept them apart. Remove those barriers, and cooperation becomes natural. She joined him at the window, watching the researchers below. Do you know what the most remarkable thing is, from my perspective? What's that? It's not the technological advances, though those are extraordinary. It's not even the political changes, though dismantling millennia-old power structures is certainly significant. She turned to look at him directly. It's how quickly beings from different worlds learned to trust each other when they had a common purpose. Marcus nodded. He had seen it himself, the way suspicion and prejudice melted away when people worked together toward shared goals. Species that had been told they were enemies discovered they had more in common than they had differences. There's something I want to show you, Zara said, leading him toward a section of the complex he hadn't visited before. They passed through several security checkpoints before entering what appeared to be a combination workshop and archive. The walls were lined with displays showing technological developments from across the cooperative, but at the center of the room was something that made Marcus's breath catch. It was their original hybrid solar panel prototype, the device they had built together in his apartment those many months ago. But it had been enhanced and modified until it barely resembled the original, glowing with an inner light that seemed to shift through colors that had no names. "This is what you wanted to show me?" "This is the heart of everything we've built," Zara said reverently. "Not just the technology, but what it represents. Two people from different worlds, working together to solve a problem that affected everyone. The proof that cooperation creates possibilities that no individual could achieve alone." She gestured to the displays around them. "Every advance we've made can be traced back to this moment when we chose to trust each other and share knowledge freely." Marcus studied the evolved version of their prototype, marveling at how far it had come. "What does it do now?" "It's become a quantum resonance generator. It can create stable wormholes for instantaneous travel between any points in the galaxy. It can manipulate matter at the subatomic level to transmute elements. It can even interface directly with biological systems to enhance cognitive function or repair cellular damage." "All from solar panel technology?" "All from the principle of harmonic resonance that we discovered together. The same basic concept, just applied to different energy systems." As they talked, Marcus noticed that other researchers were gathering in the observation areas around them. He looked questioningly at Zara, who smiled with what looked like anticipation. "There's another reason I brought you here today. The Galactic Cooperative has decided to formalize something that's been developing naturally." "What do you mean?" "Marcus Chen, by unanimous vote of all member worlds, you have been selected as the first Director of Cooperative Scientific Development. The position comes with authority to coordinate research across all cooperative worlds and to establish new collaborative projects between any interested species." Marcus felt his knees go weak. "I'm not qualified for something like that. I'm just an engineer." "You're the engineer who proved that the most advanced problems can be solved by combining different perspectives. You're the human who showed a cast-off alien princess that her ideas had value. You're the person who chose to share revolutionary technology with everyone instead of trying to profit from it." Zara's expression grew serious. "More than that, you're someone that beings from dozens of worlds have learned to trust." She gestured to the gathered researchers, and Marcus realized they were applauding. Humans, Vextari, Kethare, Zephyrians, and species he was still learning to identify, all showing their approval in whatever manner their biology allowed. "There's one more thing," Zara said as the applause died down. "The cooperative has also voted to establish a new class of citizenship. Galactic citizens will have the right to live and work on any cooperative world, to access any technology or knowledge that their home species has developed, and to participate in any research project that interests them." "That sounds like a good step toward real integration," Marcus said. "You and I are the first two galactic citizens, Marcus. We belong not to any single world, but to all of them." As Marcus processed what she was telling him, he realized that this was the culmination of everything they had worked toward. Not just technological advancement, but the creation of a truly cooperative galactic civilization where knowledge, opportunity, and citizenship weren't limited by the accident of which world someone happened to be born on. "So what happens next?" he asked. "Next, we continue building. There are still species that haven't joined the cooperative, either because they're afraid of change or because they haven't yet learned about what we're offering. There are technologies that remain theoretical, problems that need solving, and possibilities we haven't even imagined yet." Zara moved to stand beside the evolved prototype device, its shifting light reflecting off her face. "But, most importantly, we keep proving that cooperation is stronger than domination, that sharing knowledge creates more than hoarding it, and that the universe becomes a better place when different perspectives work together toward common goals." Marcus looked around the laboratory, watching beings from different worlds collaborate on projects that would have been impossible just months before. He thought about the princess who had been given away as a joke and had transformed that humiliation into the foundation for a new kind of galactic civilization. "You know," he said, "I think your father and the old Vextari Empire made the biggest mistake in galactic history when they gave you to us." Zara laughed, the sound bright and free. "The best mistakes are the ones that lead to something better than anyone planned." As they stood together in the laboratory that had become the symbol of cooperative achievement, Marcus reflected on how much had changed since that first day when an alien princess had been handed to him like an unwanted gift. They had built something extraordinary together, not through conquest or domination, but through the simple revolutionary idea that knowledge belonged to everyone. And this was just the beginning. With the barriers between worlds falling away and the combined knowledge of dozens of species being freely shared, there was no limit to what they might achieve next. The universe had become a much larger and more wonderful place, and Marcus Chen, former engineer and current galactic citizen, couldn't wait to see what they would discover tomorrow.